Hello, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Patricia from KMC. Can you guys hear me properly? Please raise your hands if you can. Okay, great. Thank you so much. So, thank you for joining us for today's webinar. So, KMC has partnered with British Chamber of Commerce of the Philippines and apper.ph to present you cloud computing, the next level of digital transformation. So, we are joined by Mr. Diwa Del Mundo, the co-founder and principal architect of apper.ph, and Mr. Patrick Zolweta, the co-founder and MD of apper.ph. So without further ado, take the floor.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. All right, so I will start sharing my screen. 1 second. Mm-hmm. Just pop open my slides here. Okay. All right. Hope everyone can see my presentation. Okay, so I'm Patrick Zulueta, one of the co-founders of Apper, and I'm pleased to, of course, join you today. Thank you to everyone who's attending, and of course, a pleasant afternoon to everyone. Hope everyone is doing well despite the pandemic and the quarantine that we're in. So I'm here to share with you the business value of the cloud, and then afterwards, my co-founder and business partner Diwa will tell you more about his journey with the cloud since he's one of the pioneers of the cloud in the Philippines. Okay, so before we start, so at least we set the groundwork. At least you understand why we partnered up with KMC and why the British Chamber of Commerce chose us for this session. So I'll briefly introduce Apper to you. So Apper is actually a multi-cloud digital innovations company. And with our team's expertise and our strategic partnerships, we merge strategy and delivery to improve the core offerings of our clientele. So our knowledge really is focused on cloud computing. And our goal is to bridge that knowledge gap. And hopefully it will eventually lead towards digital innovation. And our goal is to make the Philippines a center for excellence. All right. And just a brief introduction of the two gentlemen who will be speaking with you this afternoon. So you know me already. I'm Patrick. I'm basically passionate about building tech brands. I've helped such brands as the BPI mobile app, Kashalo, and PayMaya launch in our first 2 years. Basically, I've been there since ground zero or day one for those apps, and eventually we're able to hit the 5 million downloads mark and the 1 million users mark within that 2 year span. So cloud computing has really been at the core and at the center of these technologies. Without the cloud, these technologies wouldn't have scaled and have grown that fast. And of course, Diwa, who will be speaking later, is one of the country's pioneers for cloud. And he has over 15 years worth of IT experience. So we actually met when we were in Paymaya, and he played a mission critical role as he built the Paymaya Enterprise digital payments ecosystem. So if you go inside McDonald's, for example, or if you go inside Army Navy or any of the big retail stores today, you'll see that there's a kiosk or there's a Paymaya terminal there. And if you shop in Lazada or if you shop in Zalora, um, I think Food Panda as well, you'll see there's a Paymaya checkout tag there in the payment options. So that was actually created by Diwa's team, and my team then took over and launched and marketed those products. So in essence, what we used to do is we used to make the products which Diwa's team made look sexy, and we made sure that the customers availed of these products and used it for their businesses. So the icons you see below are not those aren't just decorations, or those aren't just pictures. Those are the number of certifications that the Upper team has. So in the country, well, we're a multi-cloud company for one, but in the country we have the most number of certifications for the cloud. So if you were to put a label behind it, you can call us like the doctors for the cloud. We're really the specialists with regards to the cloud. Okay, so our team, while small, has the talent, skills, and experience to accelerate cloud adoption, which is why we've been trusted by some of the biggest names in the industry, especially those which are digital first, including Globe, Beauty MNL, Advance, and of course the big three when it comes to cloud computing: AWS, Google Cloud, and Azure. All right, so let me start and hopefully give some insight as to why you need cloud computing and what's the value to your business. If you haven't seen that value yet, if you haven't understood why cloud is important for your business, then maybe this will enlighten you further. All right, so cloud computing, or simply the cloud, has long been established as a core technology already, and it basically shifts a or signals a shift from the traditional legacy way of computing. So the traditional legacy way, as you know, are the setups wherein there's an on-premise base of servers, and you have to purchase the infrastructure. It's basically an OPEX type of model, and sorry, a CAPEX type of model where you have to purchase it ahead of time. And then with the cloud, you're able to shift into an OPEX model where you're only able to, or you need to, pay for the services that you need. So you have that flexibility, and at the same time, you're able to be more agile with your business. And that's one of the compelling reasons to shift operations to the cloud, basically to better allocate your resources. But you'll also see later, and the cloud value framework that I'll provide you, you'll also benefit from the flexibility, agility, and of course, operational resilience, which your company will benefit from. Okay, so don't take my word for it. I'll share with you a quick video from Wall Street Journal. Actually, this was created, I think, late last year. So you will also see how big the cloud computing space already is now and why it's such a booming industry. So let me just share my video.
IBM, Google, Microsoft, all are making big bets on cloud computing. That's for good reason. Research firm Gartner forecasts public cloud revenues to exceed $260 billion in 2020. For years, Amazon's AWS led the market, but that lead is starting to slip as other firms make moves to bolster their cloud computing offerings. In October, Microsoft surprised onlookers when it won the US military's JEDI cloud contract. It could be worth $10 billion over 10 years. Weeks later, Amazon filed a protest of this decision to the US Court of Federal Claims. In July, IBM spent $34 billion to acquire Red Hat and boost its cloud business. So, why are tech firms going to battle for cloud services? To understand, you've got to know the basics.
Well, like any market that grows, it's strong because it offers a value proposition to people that they find attractive, and so they shift their spending.
Cloud computing at its core is about changing the way that businesses manage data. Everything done online, shopping, video, texts, it all takes data. The data is processed in behind-the-scenes computers called servers. Managing that equipment takes time, energy, and money. When a business moves to the cloud, it's really just outsourcing. In other words, tech firms like Amazon handle some IT services so businesses can focus on what they do best. Startups who use a cloud provider won't have to spend as much on a custom data center. They can use resources from a third party. In-house IT has to maintain enough server space to account for peak demand. That could mean that your company has a bigger data center than it needs on a consistent basis. Instead, cloud computing lets companies pool their resources. The companies use as many servers as they need and only pay for what they consume. Companies that use the cloud can benefit from the remote management of data in places like Ashburn, Virginia. Amazon, IBM, and others host some of their data centers in less populated areas like this. Both energy and land can be cheaper here than, say, a city center. You even see groups like Facebook and the NSA opening private data centers in small towns in Utah. There's potential for lower costs. The views aren't bad either. Cloud computing is tougher for some businesses than others. In the years after the launch of AWS, businesses like Netflix, Lyft, and Slack launched products with intense IT demands. They were a natural fit for cloud computing. Some companies who are moving to the cloud today are bigger and are in more regulated industries like health and finance. They're companies like JP Morgan, which operates under strict standards from regulators like FINRA. In 2017, Dana Deasy was their Chief Information Officer. At the time, he moved portions of the financial giant's data to the cloud. His next task will be even more formidable. Do the same for the Defense Department.
So I've mentioned we have a need for an enterprise cloud. So we have massive compute capability where we can start to store data in a more common way and make it accessible.
The multi-billion Joint Enterprise Defense Initiative is supposed to centralize the military's technology and reap gains in innovation. Getting there will mean untangling years of different IT systems. That will take time, money, and expertise, which is why Microsoft's potential win is so significant. Amazon is no longer the only big name in cloud computing. Microsoft's Azure Cloud Service was announced 3 years after Amazon AWS took an early lead. More than a decade has passed, and AWS still dwarfs Azure in revenues. But more deals are on the horizon.
The cloud markets are still relatively small, so their growth rate naturally is going to be higher. And we do see that growth rate coming down slightly over time as the cloud markets get bigger. But the strong growth rates are still driven by the fact that people prefer cloud models over the traditional models for a lot of their workloads.
Which is why you see the largest firms in tech betting big on the cloud. Billions of dollars hang in the balance.
All right. I hope you enjoyed that short video. Let me go back to my presentation. All right. So in a nutshell, when you see this diagram, you'll understand most of the terms within the cloud. So within the cloud, everything is accessible via the internet if you're referring to the public cloud. And through the cloud, you're able to access your server, of course, the virtualization tools which you need for your compute capacity. And then, of course, you have your storage. Actually, it's a funny story, but there's a well-known uh, storage company named Dropbox, which actually created its business model by simply using one of the services, one of the cloud computing providers, and it basically allowed its storage facility to be accessible via the internet for a massive amount of people. And now you know how big of a valuation they have. And of course, mobile applications and the mobile tools are also available since, of course, companies really need to be mobile in this very on-the-go type of lifestyle. Even in the new normal, people are still very much using their mobile phones. Applications are also very much highly accessible by the cloud, and the cloud also provides tools for database access. So, in a nutshell, it's essentially some of the terms that you need to know for the cloud and, of course, the opportunities. And beyond just using the cloud for storage or for compute capacity, the cloud is essentially at the heart and center of digital innovation and digital transformation, which is why you'll see that for the image which I'm sharing right now, at the heart and center of all of these technologies, intelligent factories, smart cities, well, in essence, IoT, 5G, big data, all of these things are really empowered because of the cloud. And it's a known fact already that before, companies used to say, oh, I'm not sure when I'm going to shift to the cloud, or I'm not sure if the cloud is important for my business. But now, because of the new normal, because digital transformation is a need, the use of the cloud has become a must. Because if you want to benefit from, of course, technology, and you want to really have the flexibility and agility for your business, then you really need the cloud. So you still might have those questions in your head. You might say, Patrick, the cloud is not secure. There are so many other issues for me with regards to the cloud. My team doesn't believe in it. My IT teams are not capable. Well, I'll already tell you now. If you're using on-premise servers or you're actually not utilizing the cloud, then you also have certain types of liability and security issues. And it's actually a known fact, those practitioners who already know about the cloud and have been practicing it for the past few years will tell you that accessing the public cloud is actually even more secure than the legacy type of infrastructure. Why is that? Because the cloud computing providers have really well invested on many years and then multiple millions of dollars of resources to be able to secure their platforms. Which is why when you see a data breach and when you see any type of issue that is related to the cloud, it's essentially not the fault of the public cloud provider. It's essentially the fault of the IT team, which was not able to take care of its encryption or it was not able to take care of its keys. So those keys and those encryption, those types of responsibilities are still care of our IT teams or the customer. And the public cloud provider will just make sure that its infrastructure, the services it provides is not only available, but it's secure. And I can guarantee you, it's rock solid with regards to security. So this study by Gartner, which was made in 2018, there's more faith now with regards to the cloud when it comes to security. But thankfully, those barriers are being broken down. And to add, I will now share with you the cloud value framework so you're able to see the benefit of the cloud to your businesses and you're able to really appreciate beyond just cost savings and beyond the flexibility which the cloud provides. You'll understand why it's important for your businesses. So this is the cloud value framework. It was created by AWS, and AWS actually studied 500 companies and 500 enterprises worldwide, and they were able to see four distinct areas of value, which you can quantify when trying to see how the cloud is able to impact businesses. So there's cost savings, staff productivity, operational resilience, and business agility. So I'll run through each one briefly, and then afterwards I'll show some interesting videos to share with you some of the use cases of the cloud, because you might say, oh, the cloud, nako, all I know about that is it's just a means for me to place my application or website in the cloud, or it's just a means to put a virtual storage on the cloud. There's so much more that you can do with the cloud, and it's at the heart and center of so much more technologies, and I'll share that with you later. So the cloud value framework presented that those companies which are on the cloud, essentially, and the longer that they are in the cloud, they're able to benefit from multiple cost savings versus using the legacy type of infrastructure. So the chart actually shows here that the percentage of infrastructure which is on AWS, basically the percentage of the technology which is hosted in the cloud, is proportionate to the percentage of the overall spend reduction. So if your technology or your company is maximizing the cloud and 25% of your IT is on the cloud, then you can experience 30% in terms of overall spend. And you can quote me on this. It's publicly available information. Globe started its cloud transformation journey in the early 2000s, I think before 2010 even. And they were spending, just for storage alone, they were spending north of 20 million pesos yearly for that expense. Eventually, they were able to cut it down, after 3 years, 5 years. And today, from 20 million yearly or annually, they're now spending just less than half a million pesos. So I'm not very good with math, but that's more than, well, that's not more than 90% in cost reduction. So it varies per company, but the average is around 30% in terms of cost savings. So if you're a company which is growing and you're, of course, ensuring digital transformation, you really need to make sure the cloud is there so you can be efficient with your expenses. The second cloud value framework is connected to staff productivity. So it's a proven fact that those companies or technologies which are using the cloud have more productive staff. And it's because of the fact that manual work or those tasks which needed, well, in essence, hands-on intervention, then technology is able to automate that. And we're not taking away jobs from people. What we're doing is we're making sure that the people that are employed are able to utilize their time for more impactful uh, tasks. And it's a proven fact that when employees are able to generate more revenue or are able to contribute more to the organization, then they become more satisfied with their jobs. So the cloud or usage of the cloud is proportionate to staff productivity, and that's also proportionate to employee satisfaction. So that's a very important and tangible use case as well for the cloud. Now, you'll see in the cloud value framework that the latter values are actually more impactful and they provide greater and long-term benefits. And operational resilience is one of those more important, impactful benefits. Operational resilience basically is the ability of your technology or your application to be resistant to security breaches, and resistant to change, resistant to evolution, resistant to acts of God even. And business continuity as well as disaster recovery is also embedded within the benefits of the cloud. So if your company, for example, was affected by the pandemic and you were caught off guard, and it's normal. I'll be honest. When talking to our clients and when talking to a lot of businesses, around 90% of businesses really said that they weren't ready for the new normal. Um, all of their employees needed their desktops or they needed the tools or resources within the office to be able to do their work. But nowadays, you'll see that in business continuity, which is a need because working from home is a must, the cloud is really at the forefront of that. Google Cloud, for people to use Google Drive, of course, to collaborate online and create documents online. Virtual workspaces, which are now even used for um, uh, BPOs or call centers. So that's very important, and that's something that the cloud has really helped them with. And it's a proven fact, and the study showed that there's a 43% reduction, at least in terms of overall incidents, because of the cloud and usage of the cloud. And it's not just overall incidents. As I mentioned earlier, your tech and your company actually becomes more secure because of the cloud. Because a lot of people are saying, "No, the cloud that's not safe." Kasi naku, yung mga cloud providers na yun, they can access the sensitive or confidential information of my company or my clients. But the truth of the matter is, if your data is already encrypted and it's already secured by your servers, the cloud computing providers will also not have access to that confidential and sensitive data. And they've been audited, and it's been proven that the data is encrypted on the cloud and all they're ensuring is making sure that the data is available for you to access, and it's not gonna there's no data loss, but they will not be able to read or view the data or access it in any shape or form. And as I mentioned, because of the fact that the cloud providers are all following the global standards for security and compliance, and they really follow the strictest measures and audits, then that's the reason why there's a 36% reduction as well in security incidents. And you're even safer when you're using the public cloud because you're able to leverage on the best practices and knowledge of these global experts. And lastly, one of my favorite tenets in the cloud value framework is actually business agility. Business agility is basically the ability of your company, your app, your tech team to be able to move fast in order to adapt to the evolving needs and changes in your business. So evolution is very, very important, especially now in the new normal. And you'll see that the study showed that there's a 33% increase in revenue because of the usage of the cloud. That's mainly because of the fact that um, it's it's proven already that those tech teams or those companies which are using the cloud, they're able to move faster, they're able to come up with enhancements, they're able to come up with better features. And those companies which are really in the cloud, Netflix, Spotify, Gcash, even locally, Coins, all of these companies which are utilizing the cloud, they're able to really provide the best customer experience. And customer experience is proportionate to application revenue and of course the bottom line to your company. So those are the benefits: 20% accelerated time to market, as well as of course better and improved SLAs. So you're able to handle more features and more fixes per release. And for IT teams, if it's not cost savings, it's speed and as well as SLAs, which they're looking out for. So that's something that is able to um, improve because of the cloud. So enough about those stats. I'd like to end my section by sharing one quick video to show you the future of technology. And one of the things I actually saw when I visited New York around Feb this year. Don't worry, I was in New York before COVID hit there. Thankfully, I was able to go back before things got bad. But I was able to step in one of the Amazon Go stores and I saw how advanced the technology was. And it's, of course, powered by the cloud. So I'll show this quick video to inspire you.
4 years ago, we started to wonder, what would shopping look like if you could walk into a store, grab what you want, and just go? What if we could weave the most advanced machine learning, computer vision, and AI into the very fabric of a store, so you never have to wait in line? No lines, no checkouts, no registers. Welcome to Amazon Go. Use the Amazon Go app to enter. Then put away your phone and start shopping. It's really that simple. Take whatever you like. Anything you pick up is automatically added to your virtual cart. If you change your mind about that cupcake, just put it back. Our technology will update your virtual cart automatically. So how does it work? We used computer vision, deep learning algorithms, and sensor fusion, much like you'd find in self-driving cars. We call it Just Walk Out technology. Once you've got everything you want, you can just go. When you leave, our Just Walk Out technology adds up your virtual cart and charges your Amazon account. Your receipt is sent straight to the app, and you can keep going. Amazon Go. No lines, no checkout. No, seriously.
Okay, so it's present in multiple cities already in the United States, and this is some of the it's a sneak preview of the type of technology and the capabilities that cloud computing, 5G, IoT, sensors, and all of these AI, of course, machine learning, all these technologies combined are capable of doing. And a lot of people joke me na, oh, in the Philippines ako, hindi yan pwede pat kasi maraming magnanakaw. Well, may mga CCTV naman and may mga cameras and sensors, which are very pricey, by the way. But it's the future. I foresee that happening in more countries in the next 5 to 10 years, and I think it's a very exciting time. And so much more will be um, present not only in those first world countries, but in emerging countries as well because of the cloud. And uh, I guess we at Apper are here to really fast track adoption of the cloud. And we're really lagging behind usage of the cloud compared to Singapore, even Thailand, Vietnam, Indonesia. And it's really an important and it's a must have technology already for any company which, of course, uses technology. And we're here to help you. As part of those who are in this webinar, we'll provide a free 1 hour consultation. It's of course no expectations and no commitments type of consultation where we can scope your company's needs, we can scope your technology, and we'll see how we can best help you with regards to the cloud. So if you're interested to know more about that, feel free to let the people who invited you know, or you can feel free to message me anytime. So that's it for me. I'll now stop share so I can turn you over to Diwa.
All right. So thank you, Pat, for sharing. So I hope you guys are really excited about the possibilities of cloud. So, so Pat showed the video about Amazon Go, and I personally experienced that when Pat and I went to the AWS reInvent conference in Las Vegas last December. So it's really amazing. I think it's hard to describe. So you see on the video that people just get the, let's say, an item, let's say the food you want to eat, and just go out, right? So when you really experience that, you will realize that we're we're in a period of time that technology is really really futuristic. Like, I mean, 10 years ago or even 15 years ago, you can't imagine that those things are possible. But because of the capabilities of cloud, all of these things are starting to happen. So what I'm going to share to you guys this afternoon would be my cloud journey. So my career practically started and grew with the cloud. Okay, just give me a second. I just need to share my screen. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. So as I mentioned, my career really started and grew with the cloud. And when it started, I wasn't expecting too much with cloud technologies. I just saw it as a way to do my work. But I realized early on that there's potential, and it would make sense to really invest on it. And eventually, that's what I did. So I'll take you to the different phases in that journey, and I'm hoping that you get something out of it, because you might have joined this webinar because you might have heard of cloud computing, or you might have heard about it from your colleagues. Your company or your business might be considering moving your workloads or your services in the cloud. So listening to this cloud journey will help you better understand how it evolved, and will give you some insights of where it's going in the next 10 years. So to quickly give a background of myself. So I've been working with cloud technologies for a decade now. So started working it way back in 2010. And for the past 10 years, I work a lot with the startups as a software developer. And early on, I also involved myself in the cloud community, so as AWS User Group Philippines cloud community leader. So I've been really committed since 2014, and back then we were like several dozen people who meet monthly to discuss cloud. But over the years, we were able to grow and help people better understand cloud technologies. And because of my enthusiasm and passion for the cloud, it really inspired me to take and invest on my certifications for the cloud. And it really helped me, not only personally, but also professionally, to better understand what the cloud can do for me, and also for the businesses and companies that I help. So as Pat mentioned a while ago, so actually the cloud is something that isn't new, right? Because Amazon Web Services actually launched way back in 2006. So to put into perspective, that's 14 years ago, right? So since then, AWS helped a lot of companies launch digital innovations and services. And you might heard some of it. So for example, if you guys are watching videos or watching series in Netflix, Netflix is one of the companies that really went all in to the cloud. So aside from Netflix, you also have companies like Twitch, LinkedIn, Facebook, BBC, ESPN, Adobe, Twitter, and so on, right? Locally, you have companies like Globe, Paymaya, and a lot of fintech companies, also enterprises like Jollibee, right? So all of these companies globally and locally have seen the potential of the cloud, and you'll see that investing in the cloud can really give you a lot of benefits, and can really help you grow your business. So my personal journey started way back in 2010, and it was really shaped by the companies I worked with. So back in the early 2010s, I worked for a startup called Viki.com. So it's if you guys are a fan of K-dramas, one of our products and biggest like money maker back then would be K-dramas. Essentially, we have it's a video community site, and we stream videos like K-dramas fresh from Korea, and we have a community who subtitle them, right? And we used AWS and Heroku back then to launch our application. So after a couple of years working abroad, I decided to go back and work in startups. And eventually I ended up in Paymaya, where I met my business partner, Pat, and also helped build the payments ecosystem of Paymaya. So I built the Paymaya payment gateway on top of AWS services and built around the teams around it, and eventually it really grew. So from processing a few thousand pesos every month to hundreds of millions of pesos of payment throughput every month. So probably now it's processing maybe billions now. But the key thing here is that I was able to see the opportunity of developing a payment system on top of the cloud, and that really accelerated development, which allowed Paymaya to position itself as a strong payment processor and payment gateway provider. Now, after almost 5 years in Paymaya, I realized that we want to go back and, in a way, also help other companies bring out their innovations. So that's the reason Pat and I reconnected together with some of our co-founders to launch Apper Digital. And what we intend to do is to help businesses really understand the value of cloud to accelerate their business. So in the early 2010s, cloud is seen as it's more of a rising technology, right? So very few companies actually have heard of the cloud, and most of them are startups. So it's considered as leading edge back then. And when you say cloud, usually you refer to what we call infrastructure as a service, or IaaS. Essentially, it's instead of having physical servers in your office or on premises, you put them on the cloud. So they become like virtual resources. Eventually, people figured out that, okay, infrastructure as a service good because you have servers, databases running virtually, but sometimes you just want to focus on delivering your application or workload. So eventually people figured out having a better setup, and it's called PaaS, or Platform as a Service. So that's the time I first encountered Heroku. So Heroku is one of the pioneers for PaaS services. And eventually cloud providers like AWS adopted it and have their own service. So in AWS, for example, you call it the Elastic Beanstalk. In GCP, you call it App Engine. Okay, and it is a very interesting world back then because most people don't know about the cloud. So you feel like you're working on something very exciting because not a lot of people know about it. At the same time, big data is a buzzword back then. So if your company stores a lot of data, cloud is a good fit because practically you don't need to buy a physical hardware to store your data, and you can put a lot of your data on the cloud. So one of the companies that really went all in for cloud back then, so this is around 2009, 2010, was actually Netflix. So I think Netflix did a really good decision, actually a really, really great decision, because it allowed them to really focus on their core business, which is video streaming, and not worry about how to scale physical infrastructure. Because if you're going to build, let's say, Netflix without the cloud, it's going to be very tedious. Because how are you going to store all of the TV shows, the movies, all of this video data and physical hardware, right? Because sooner or later you're going to run out of capacity. The other thing for video would be, how do you actually stream it to your users, right? So although Netflix is a US-based company, you have a lot of users like us Filipinos streaming video out of it, right? So how do you bring the data closer to your users? And the way to do that is you need to have a content delivery network. So if a company like Netflix need to worry and manage all of this physical infrastructure, it will take away their focus from video streaming to managing physical infrastructure. So having or using a cloud provider like AWS really enabled them to scale. Cloud is also provides like a way for startups to innovate and enable. Because as a startup, previously you might not have access to capital for you to create your own physical infrastructure. So cloud enables startups to really focus on their product development, so they can easily innovate and test their product market fit. So the cloud can enable them to do that. Back then, I also noticed that Google and Microsoft have started have noticed or have started noticing the rise of AWS, and they have also started working in GCP and Microsoft Azure. So to give you a perspective, during that time, AWS has less than 25 services in 2011. So most of these services are core foundational services like EC2, S3, which you use for your compute and storage needs. So working for a startup also allowed me to look at the different configuration and platforms. So back then, I also work on video streaming and DRM for videos. So I was fortunate enough to have exposure on Google's technologies aside from AWS. During that time, they don't even call it GCP. If I remember correctly, just call it App Engine. It's a bit limited during that time, but you can see that Google wants to compete with AWS. So I was also fortunate enough to visit one of their headquarters and campus in the US back in 2012. So very interesting. They have a very interesting culture, also a very impressive office. Okay, so to put it simply, I use AWS services to build applications and platforms, mainly for video applications. And that's the time also I changed my mindset of thinking of computer resources as a consumer rather than as servers or physical servers. So it means that when you think about, let's say, if you need a compute power or storage, you just think of it just like how you see your electricity bill, right? So if you want to use, let's say, an appliance, you just plug it, right? And at the end of the day, the electricity company will give you a bill and you'll pay for it. So that allowed me to understand cloud computing, because if I need, let's say, a server, or I need some service to process our videos, then what I just need to do is just provision and access a cloud service. And at the end of the day, at the end of the month, I just get billed. So that is a very powerful paradigm shift, because it frees you up from spending time thinking about physical infrastructure. Eventually, I went back to Manila, and I went to join a startup, and I was leading their engineering department. That's also the time I realized that I also need to fast track my understanding and knowledge of the cloud. So back in 2013, AWS released the AWS Certified Solutions Architect program. Essentially, it's a certification program that IT professionals who want to further and then improve their knowledge of the cloud can take. So I saw the opportunity and the potential of cloud and investing more on the cloud. So I decided to take it. So I was fortunate to pass it, and I'm actually one of the first few IT professionals in the country to have received the certification back in 2014. So this enabled me to really fast track my understanding and my knowledge about the cloud, and it went it really increased in terms of certification. Really increased throughout the years. So the key takeaways when the cloud started was it was really focused on the foundations, on the core services like IaaS, and the early adopters, they made huge gains in their businesses. And one thing that you need to really do is to also invest in enablement, because it will help you fast track and also understand the cloud in a more deeper manner, and it can help you in your career or in your business. So the mid-2010s became more interesting in the sense that more companies and more people have heard about the cloud, and the acceptance has really started. So most people have taken the cloud seriously, and cloud also in terms of services is moving up the stack. So what do we mean by moving up the stack? So I mentioned a while ago that when cloud started, it mostly focused on the core services like the the compute, storage, network databases. And as more people, more companies have used cloud services, cloud providers also realize that they need to increase their offerings, right? So they move up the stack. So they introduce more services on the application level service, even for software as a service. So it was a very interesting time during the mid-2010s. There were also a lot of innovations when it comes to how you host your applications. So one thing that really became really big back then was what we call serverless. So serverless essentially was popularized by AWS Lambda. And the basic idea here is that instead of running your application code into servers, you just need to upload your application code into the serverless platform. So it means that you just don't even need to think about servers. You just need to put your code into Lambda, and that's it. So that introduced a new way of thinking about applications. At the same time, it also gave a way for companies to really take advantage of the cost efficiencies of using the cloud. So in terms of the revenue, so for example, in AWS, you can see here in this graph that the revenue really grew during the last 5 years. And I can remember that in the past, during the mid-2010s, that AWS has started increasing their services. And the reason for that is that since more people have started using the cloud, the revenue also grew. So that's allowed AWS to democratize a lot of more advanced technologies to more people. So having that economies of scale really benefited a lot of customers. There. So aside from the acceptance of more companies, more people in the cloud, we also saw an increased number of more advanced services, not only on the application side, but also for development. So there were new services introduced for accelerating and increasing the velocity of software companies. That includes having capabilities for DevOps, CI/CD, and also gave a birth for the rise of software containers, including Docker and Kubernetes. So in 2016, for perspective, for example, we have AWS has about 60 services. So there's a huge jump from roughly 25 to 60 services by 2016. And if you look at it, so this graph shows the number of services in AWS, for example. So you have almost 60 by 2016, and it continually increased the next several years. So the key takeaways during this time is you can build a lot of impactful and revenue generating services on top of AWS, and leveraging advances in the cloud like serverless security will allow you to deliver innovations and software faster. It also will allow your team to focus on delivering business value rather than, let's say, doing a repetitive task or heavy lifting task in delivering software. On my cloud journey, I also invested more and went deeper into understanding the more advanced capabilities for AWS. As the number of AWS services and cloud services in general grew, it became really complex too. Right? So to help people understand, to help IT professionals better understand this complexity, AWS has created additional certification tracks, which allowed you to have a more focus on understanding the services and how you can build new products and services on because of new services from these more advanced services. The key takeaways are application and security services are critical. And it's very important that you understand that how to use these services to make your application secure. Mid-2010s also was a key tipping point in terms of adoption. So we see more people using it. And serverless and container technologies also took off during this time. Okay, So we saw how I grew and also how the cloud service grew in the past decade. Now, let us look at it on what is the current state of the cloud now in 2019 and 2020, and what are the changes can we expect on the next 5 to 10 years. So if you look at the revenue here, so you can see here that AWS revenue has consistently grew, and now it's almost $35 billion. So for 2019, they rake in almost $35 billion, and I believe this will continue to go up in the next 5 years. The AWS services also increased proportionally. So from 60 services in the mid 2010s, now you have more than 200 services now in AWS. It's actually really complex now. It could be really intimidating if you try to open the, let's say, the AWS management console. You can see a lot of services there. So it could get really confusing, and sometimes you might need help navigating your way around it. So cloud is seen more of a new normal. So if you're starting a new company, it's something that you can consider as a starting point for deploying your innovation or application. And the acceptance is really there. And in terms of the number of services, it's more specialized. So when you say cloud, we don't just really talk about service anymore. You talk about more advanced services like artificial intelligence, machine learning, IoT services, media services, even services for end user computing. So for example, if you need virtual desktops, it's something that you can easily use now with cloud platforms. There's also a huge acceptance for serverless technologies, and serverless is seen as a way for you to optimize your cost. Because the key thing with serverless is that you only need to pay for the compute time for a service, for the time that the service is run. So for example, if your service is run only for, let's say, a few hundred milliseconds, you only need to pay for that amount of time. Compared to that, let's say for a server where you pay every hour. So serverless allows you to cost optimize your application or service, and this will improve the way you think about operations. To give better context, for example, we have an internal platform for enablement called Springboard, and we have developed that using serverless technologies from the ground up. And one thing I really like about serverless is that you just need to deploy it, and you don't even need to think about it. So no need to think about servers, no need to think about maintenance. For most cases, it will just run, and we just need to pay for a portion of the time that it runs. So that really help us optimize our cost. So aside from serverless, you might have heard also about things like containers. Essentially, it's in a way you can call it like a lightweight VM. It will allow you to increase your velocity by having a common standard for deploying applications and platforms. Okay, so I would also like to quickly go through some of the services that are now part of cloud platforms. So for example, you have a specialized service now for machine learning. And machine learning is a very interesting technology because it allows you to have capabilities for a machine or for a program to do without explicitly programming. So things like recommendation, predictions, forecasting, computer vision, natural language processing, understanding. All of these are use cases and capabilities that you can leverage if you use machine learning services. Locally, we've seen companies who ask our help to better utilize these services for use cases such as KYC. So for example, if you find your company doing a lot of repetitive tasks, let's say trying to determine if let's say an image is a valid ID for know your customer KYC purposes, Usually the way to do that, if you do that manually, is that you have agents that look on an image and see if the person, let's say in the photo or in the video, are the same in the image that was submitted for as a proof for identity. So those are the things that machine learning can help you with. So it means that machine learning service can help you determine if an image is a legitimate, let's say, LTO ID or a passport, right? So it can help you lessen the manual work. We also saw a rise of needs for fraud detection. So coming from a payment background, so for example, payments is a very interesting field because you have a lot of challenges, and one of the key challenges for payments is determining fraud. Now, usually what you do here is you implement rule-based services that could determine, let's say, or could tell you that, okay, under this certain parameters, okay, this is a safe transaction, and you go beyond those parameters because you're just fraud. Normally, that might work most of the time, but there are certain cases that you need something that is driven by data, and machine learning could help you with those cases. You can also use the cloud for end user computing. So this is very timely with the new normal. So if your team is looking for a secure environment for your desktops, so you can also consider end user computing. So if you want to deploy, let's say, dozens of virtual desktops for your internal application for your team, then having an on-demand compute environment for your workflows is a good way to utilize cloud services. So you get billed by the hour, and you can easily turn off the virtual desktops after you have used them. So the key advantage of this is that you don't need to buy high-end physical hardware. You can use less or low-powered devices, and if you're concerned about security, having virtual desktops, you can have a private network on the cloud. So other key cloud services that might interest you would be Internet of Things. So IoT allows you to collect, ingest, and process data from smart devices. So personally, I use IoT devices at home. I find them interesting and useful because nowadays you can have devices such as smart bulbs or even your TV. You could all have IP addresses, and you can put them into the network, which allows you to automate certain things. So for example, you want to turn on or turn off your light bulb at, let's say, 10 o'clock in the evening. That can be easily done because Internet of Things will give the ability for you to control your devices. So these are the things that can be used not only in the home, but also, of course, in your business or even in industrial use cases. Okay, so what will happen? So we've seen how the cloud evolved from 2010s, in the mid 2010s, and now. But what will happen 2020 and beyond? So what will happen is hardware, cloud computing hardware will get closer to the users. So what do we mean by that? So one thing about us here in the Philippines is that there's no public cloud provider that has a region. So the closest, for example, in AWS is that the closest regions they have are Singapore and Hong Kong regions. So it means that if you use an AWS service, you need to access them outside of the country. So let's say you have an application or a database. On the network level, the data needs to travel from let's say from your laptop or from your iPad, needs to go to your ISP and eventually go to AWS in the Singapore region. So there's latency involved. So it means it takes roughly 100 milliseconds, probably 50 milliseconds at best, for the data to travel. Now the trend here is that there are more capabilities now. So AWS, for example, have introduced certain services and devices that will allow you to have physical hardware, but you can still access them from the same control panel. So that will enable use cases that need faster latency and faster response times. So here in this screen, you see AWS Snowcone. So Snowcone is a small, rugged, secure edge computing device. Practically, it's a small computer that is inside a strong physical case. And the way that can be used is that it has its own power. So you can deploy it, let's say, in rugged environments. And you can still control it from the AWS Management Console. So everything is centralized, but the cloud computing capability is not centered around the region anymore. So it can bring it closer to the users. I also see a lot of more use cases that leverage IT devices. So in particular, more automation on the industry use cases. I think that's going to be big in the next 5 to 10 years. Automation in factories that actually happened in most developed countries already. Locally, not much yet, but I would expect that as companies realize that they can gain efficiencies and save more money if they automate, I expect that more people will leverage and more companies will leverage IoT devices. The other key thing that is coming would be the rise of 5G networks. So you guys are aware that currently we're using a LTE, which is 4G, but in the next 12 months, you'll see more companies, more telcos offering services that run on top of 5G. 5G essentially makes your network faster, so it will enable more use cases, exciting applications such as AR, VR, so augmented reality, virtual reality. It will also allow capabilities in edge computing. So it means that there could be a compute facility not only in the region, the cloud computing region, but there could be cloud computing facilities or hardware capacity here in Manila. So I think that will enable more use cases, and I think that's going to be exciting. All right, so that's a lot of stuff to ingest, and I know, and it's a lot of stuff to unpack. So I'm giving some ideas of how are you going to start your journey. So I divided it into profiles. So the first one is if you're an end user, right? So maybe you have joined this seminar or this webinar not really knowing what to expect, but you know that, okay, cloud computing is something that might be useful for you. So for most end users, you can leverage cloud services like Google Drive, iCloud, and OneDrive. So what does it mean? So it means that, let's say if you have data, let's say you have photos or videos, and you're thinking of, let's say, buying an external hard drive to store them, to back them up, maybe it's you should also consider utilizing a subscription from any of these services. Personally, I'm not using physical hardware anymore. I just usually just upload them to the cloud, and I think that's provides me a lot of confidence because I don't need to think about physical hardware getting malfunctioning, or someone might be accidentally getting my data, because I feel more secure that my data is in the cloud. And a lot of the cloud service providers provide ample security measures to protect your data. You can also consider SaaS services. So top of mind would be Google Suite. So you can use the Google Doc, Microsoft 365 if you're an existing Office user. So Microsoft also shifted to a more SaaS model. So it means that rather than buying, let's say, Microsoft Office, the new model now is to pay it monthly, right? So personally, I actually use both. Even for Apper, we use both Office suites, so we just need to pay monthly. So that provides us a lot of convenience, because you just need to pay per license or per user. At the same time, the updates are automatic. So it means that we don't need to worry about updating, let's say, the Microsoft Office installed in a laptop, because every time we use the Microsoft Office or Google Suite, we know it's updated, and you can see it. some features might be appearing automatically, and that's something we don't need to worry about. It just happens. One of the key things that kind of made me excited this past few weeks would be cloud gaming. So if you're a gamer, you should try to consider cloud gaming now. It has a lot of potential. I wouldn't say that's mature already, but I see it as very exciting. So for example, I'm using a MacBook. I actually have two devices. I usually use an iPad to present and an old MacBook 12-inch. And just like any user, I want to, or I'm thinking of upgrading my machines. But I realize, do I want to upgrade my machines like every several years, right? And let's say I want to play a game or I want to be entertained. Do I really need to buy high-powered hardware just to play something, right? So this is where the cloud can come in. Now you can even play games like, actually most games, and you can play it over a cloud server. So here's an example. Last weekend, I tried playing this game called Dota 2, which runs over a streaming technology called Parsec. And I was able to play a game from an AWS cloud server hosted in Hong Kong. And I computed the cost. It's about 49 pesos per hour. So that's not too bad, right? Because I can play the game. I don't need to worry about buying physical hardware. I don't need to decommission my personal MacBook just to play a game. Because if I run the game in my MacBook, it wouldn't run because the MacBook has limited specs. But by using cloud, it will allow me to use or to play the game without really buying hardware. If you're part of a business or part of a startup planning or wanting a new digital innovation, you should start building with cloud services from the get-go. And one thing that we could advise you guys is to leverage serverless technologies. I think if you leverage serverless technologies from the get-go, you will reap the benefit of having very low or very low cloud computing bill, especially once you launch. There's an investment in terms of technology and also a learning curve. But if you do things correctly, you will save a lot in the future. At the same time, also spend time on enablement. So what do we mean by that? So you need to spend time also learning the cloud platform. So if you're a business professional, you might be working on the marketing department, or you're a business owner. So you can leverage resources, and all of the cloud providers provide a lot of free resources to jumpstart your enablement journey. And if you want to be serious about it, you can even take a certification. So for example, in AWS, there's the AWS Certified Cloud Practitioner. So there's something that you can leverage as a business professional. So it requires you more or less several months of fundamental AWS cloud and industry knowledge, but it's going to really make you understand how it works, how the economies of scale works in the cloud, which could give you a better background in making business decisions. If you're a technical professional, we recommend that you go straight to the associate level. And there are a lot of role-based certifications for an architect position, operations, developer, even specializations. Specializations that include networking, security, machine learning, and data. If you're already on the cloud, so your company or business might be running cloud workloads for many years already. So this is the best time to optimize costs and automate. So the key for saving money on the cloud is to always optimize. So it means that you all should always look at your bill, inspect things on the bill and see if you can right size, or you can probably optimize certain things to make your costs lower. At the same time, automation is key. So if you're doing things manually over and over again, it's a good time to revisit and see if you can automate. If you have monolithic applications or monolithic applications, traditional servers, traditional applications, it's also a good time to revisit and see if you can re-architect to serverless or container technologies. So that could give you the cost savings moving forward. want to explore and innovate, consider machine learning. So machine learning gives you a lot of capabilities. So instead of explicitly programming the capabilities, you can let the machine figure it out itself. If your business or company is still using traditional on-premises infrastructure, or at least looking at cloud as a possible option, possibly as a disaster recovery option, or it might be moving non-critical workloads, the best way to look at it would be to understand the cloud economics, because it shifts the way we think of capital towards a more OPEX model. So you're shifting towards a more consumption model rather than a capital expenditure. It's also a good idea to invest and build your organization's capability rather than go headfirst. So going headfirst in the cloud, that might work in certain cases, but we've also seen customers that have spent a lot of money, unneeded expenditures for things that weren't designed or weren't architected from the get-go. Okay, so that brings me at the end of my presentation. So the key takeaways for my talk is if you want to save, consider serverless and container cloud services. Invest on your cloud enablement and always continue your cloud journey. And you'll see that by doing this, eventually you'll reap the benefits, and it's going to be good for you. At the end of the day, what cloud provides is not about servers. It's not about the serverless and machine learning services. Cloud will allow you to build innovation and deliver value to your customers. Okay, so thank you and enjoy your cloud journey.
Thank you so much for the comprehensive presentation, Mr. Diwa and Mr. Pat. The information you shared are surely helpful, especially for those who are looking into starting their cloud journey during this time. And with that, we'll now proceed with the Q&A part of the session. I see some of our audience already started to type in their questions, so we may continue to do so that our speakers can answer them live.
Oh, I'm on mute. Thanks, Pat. I see one question here with regards to what is the position of Banco Central on cloud computing? Diwa, would you like to take this on with your comprehensive experience in payments?
Yeah. So BSP is actually quite progressive in terms of policies when it comes to the cloud. When we started in PayMaya, that's a really huge challenge, because at least for the payments industry, especially for card issuers, one of the key requirements is to have your data on soil. But how can it work in a cloud setup if your data is actually outside of the Philippines, right? Say you work in AWS or Microsoft Azure, they don't have regions here in the country. So that's a huge challenge. So, but what I noticed with BSP throughout the years is they have started to accept cloud. I heard there were even rural banks that have their banking core systems on the cloud. So you can search, for example, for Oradian. Oradian is the technology provider for a rural bank. I forget the national name, but Cotillion Bank. Okay, so I remember this use case. Cotillion Bank is I think it's based either in Visayas or Mindanao, but they have the core banking system in the cloud outside of the Philippines. So what we see here is that BSP has started accepted cloud as a infrastructure platform for banks and financial services companies. So I think that's a good thing. And even during my time in PayMaya, the governor, Mr. Governor Espinilla, unfortunately he passed away already, but he was really progressive about cloud technologies. I think that's a good sign, and I think that once a cloud provider has a region here in the Philippines, that will accelerate a lot of migrations. I think that's the key challenge here in the country. Since we don't have a public cloud provider that has a region here, there are still apprehensions, and I think that's justified because if you tell me that your banking data is, let's say, is somewhere out there in Singapore or in Hong Kong, that the sound of it sounds kind of scary. So at the very least, you might need to create a hybrid architecture, hybrid setup where you have your database here in the Philippines, in a data center in the Philippines, but you have certain parts of your application or platform hosted on cloud platforms outside of the Philippines. I hope that gave more insight.
Thanks, Diwa. So we also have a question with regards to from Mylene Sarabia. Do you provide AWS certification training camp? Yes, actually, Apper provides coaching programs, and it's geared towards those companies who need to make their tech teams knowledgeable and certified with regards to the cloud. So we teach them how to become a certified solutions architect, certified developers, certified systems admin, and our newest program is actually geared towards machine learning and AI. So it's very next generation, and we're the first in the country to provide this type of a training program. So it will provide cloud developers a sneak preview of the machine learning technologies for them to be able to be accustomed to it. And for those who want to be a specialist with regards to machine learning, uh, developers can also take that as well as data scientists. So if you'd like to know more, I would love to schedule a call with you, Mylene. Thank you as well. Any further questions? Okay.
Yeah, I think those are the questions. So they may reach out to apper.ph. We can just send the contact details through a post event email. So we'll be happy to connect with you all. So any final word from you, Mr. Pat or Mr. Diwa?
Sure. For me, I'd like to thank everyone again for attending the session today. And like any adoption of any type of technology, it's not something that happens overnight. It's not something that you will figure out today or something you'll figure out this week. It's a journey, and Apper, well, we're really here, and that's why D1 and I left our stable jobs to really build the technology stack of the Philippines and to make us really more progressive with regards to adoption of digital transformation and innovation. And we're your partners here. We're here to help, and we'd love to know how we can assist you with not just your journey with the cloud, but your overall digital transformation efforts. Diwa, any final words?
Yeah, so I would like to thank our partners, KMC, and also the British Chamber of Commerce for giving us the opportunity. Thank you also for everyone who attended this seminar. It's actually a cloudy day, so it's raining, and thank you for joining. And yeah, so as Pat mentioned, it's always a journey. So you might feel like overwhelmed with the things we have shared, and but I think that's true for all technologies. And you should always have that propensity to learn new things and also challenge ourselves to be better and continue to innovate. That's all.
Okay, again, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. Stay safe and stay healthy.
Thank you, everyone. Stay safe. Thank you. Thank you
Thank
to our
you.
partner, KMC.